What is going on, Lancers? Welcome back to the Style of Gaming, and welcome to another edition of my Anthem Masterwork weapon reviews. In this video, I'm breaking down the Masterwork Light Machine Gun Renewed Courage. Thank you to everybody who has shown the channel support. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and let's break down the strengths and drawbacks of this Masterwork LMG. Renewed Courage is a badass looking weapon. When I first saw it, it immediately reminded me of Red Death from Destiny. The crimson red barrel holds a stark contrast to the dark onyx body, and the white symbol across the frame is just super cool. I really appreciate the splashes of the highly metallic and reflected crimson on the front of the scope and in various places on the weapon, like right behind the trigger. While the symbol is really cool, I wish I had some form of understanding about what it represented. When you look in the lore, there's pretty much nothing about except it states that freelancers love it, but it just kind of looks like some type of scar symbology. Even more so, it looks strikingly similar to Siva inscriptions from Destiny, not to make a ton of Destiny references there. Renewed Courage was my first Masterwork weapon and really helped me conquer some of the earlier level plays with its aggressive and fast-paced action. One of the first things you'll notice about this LMG is the extreme pull that this weapon has when it fires. When I first began shooting, it was really the first time that I felt the recoil system really begin to get away from me in Anthem. This weapon's recoil pin expands fast and pulls up like unlike any weapon in the game. As a result, it's given me one of the best feeling weapon experiences in all of Anthem. On one hand, the recoil is pretty out of control for the first 7/8 of the magazine, which does take some getting used to. But on the other hand, this weapon just reacts and feels so damn good and so realistic, I just can't get over it. As I'm firing Renewed Courage's deep 75 round mag, I find myself forgetting the fact that it's a fairly average weapon. It's awesome because this LMG feels like one of the only autocannons that's available for all classes because, as we know, autocannons are exclusive to the Colossus. However, the damage is pretty average, landing anywhere from 600 to 2200 damage per round. This weapon has better than average force as it stifles basic and some lowly elites, and virtually has no pushback to bigger enemies. This kinetic weapon is surprisingly decent against shields, but does hardly any damage against armor in general. Like most light machine guns, Renewed Courage has a poor reload speed, taking around 7 seconds on average to refill. The give and take is, as I said earlier, the massive magazine that can definitely be influenced with gear. For example, with my Colossus, I was able to have 111 rounds, which really helped add to the average damage and the overall stopping power. Renewed Courage has excellent range for an LMG. Regardless of if an enemy is right in your face or at a distance, you still output the same amount of damage. Ultimately, this weapon can do some decent damage once you get control of the recoil, and that's a much easier task when you take into consideration the Masterwork perk. The Survivor's Balance Masterwork ability states, the last shot reduces recoil by 50% for 20 seconds and can stack up to twice. So this ability really helps with the worst function of the weapon, but it really is a lame ability in comparison to the myriad of Masterworks in the game. There's really nothing to add beyond the fact that it just reduces recoil. It makes the awesome range of the weapon even greater, yeah, sure, and it allows you to send the torrential volley of bullets in the path of least resistance, but it doesn't buff anything. It doesn't take the middle of the road damage output, and it just leaves it in the exact same place. So while I appreciate the reduction of recoil, it makes me really question the value of this gun in one of your precious weapon slots. In my Balm of Gavinicus video, I briefly outlined a tier system in which I categorized Masterwork weapons of Anthem. Tier 1 are multifaceted firearms checking all major boxes, if you will, all around favorable stats such as reload speed, stopping power, damage to shields, armor, Masterwork abilities, etc. Most important in my ranking system is how these weapons stack up in the Grandmaster difficulties of the game. I would say that Renewed Courage is a tier 3 weapon, viable for all difficulties up to and including Grandmaster 1. As I said, first and foremost, this was one of the first Masterwork weapons I received while playing. This made late hard mode play and breaking into Grandmaster 1 very smooth. And if I would have reviewed this weapon right away, I'd argue this is one of the best weapons in the game. But as I make my entry into Grandmaster 3, this weapon has almost no viability. The damage isn't enough to even thwart basic enemies, and its Masterwork ability doesn't really help you output any more damage or buff your gear in any way. It made me really reevaluate how much I would be using this weapon overall, because its ability feels like it was slapped on at the end to adjust for the crazy recoil it has. But the ability is just so self-inclusive to the weapon weapon, and it really doesn't change the landscape of the battlefield with it. Particularly, if you use this weapon frequently, you'll just find a natural cadence to its recoil, making the ability seem fairly pointless. I really hope to see some type of update for this weapon's perk, something to increase damage or influence gear, or just some type of perk that simply changes the value of this weapon, because as it stands, its limitation to Grandmaster 1 will have me choosing a different primary weapon every single time. All in all, Renewed Courage is one to look forward to in the early levels of play. This weapon feels amazing to fire, but as you ascend the Tower of Anthem's difficulties, this weapon becomes more casual and less likely to be implemented. The Masterwork ability is forgettable at best, and ultimately pales in comparison to the other great perks out there. Thank you, Lancers, for watching. I'll see you out there in the world of Bastion and here for another Anthem Masterwork weapon review.